So Grace Islet is situated off of the coast of the busiest harbor in Ganges on Saltspring Island. A very visible site where a homeowner wanted to build a house on top of this rare and endangered ecosystem, and also identified 14 plus boreal cairns and indicated that it may not be suitable for development. That was back in 2006. So, as I understand in the Coast Salish tradition, one of the more recent practices is to identify remains by marking them with boreal cairns, which are rock formations, generally in a circle. And with islets in close proximity to village sites, those locations were used to lay to rest high-ranking community officials in the community. So whether it be a chief, a great artisan, a great hunter, gatherer, and so islets were to be avoided and to be let rest in peace and in constant ceremony with nature, with the seasons. When somebody goes to build a house directly on top of the cemetery, it's never right, and certainly not in this circumstance. There's a lot of properties on Salt Spring and other Gulf Islands and up and down this coast that have burial locations, and that can be okay in some circumstances on private land, as long as you're not building directly above, you're respecting that space. To the shock and horror of local First Nations, in June 2014, a lot of the building permits started to go through and construction commenced. The building went up very quickly, a ton of concrete and gravel. There were protective boxes above a lot of the burial cairns. A tiny 3/4 acre islet, certainly no room to build a house without impacting heavily on these burial cairns. So to myself and many others on Salt Spring and the surrounding communities, we saw the blatant racism in that and stood up to make sure that government, the public, and media all knew what was happening, so that this doesn't continually happen again and again and again, which it had previously. So even if the house was going to be built all the way to the top, we were committed to raising awareness throughout the whole time that this is never right, and even if they get away with this one, we're going to make enough of a stink that they reevaluate their laws and policies, speaking of government, Heritage Conservation Act, and so forth. And so I think we were successful in that attempt. Cowichan tribes in November of 2014 asserted legal claim to Grace Islet, and respecting all of the other local First Nations as well, but then putting the province and homeowner on notice through legal means. And within 2 days, the government responded, and within 3 weeks, there was a tentative announcement made that Grace Islet would be purchased by the provincial government and turned back into the care of local First Nations. So if we see encroachments happening against First Nations lands or culture in our communities, we need to do something about it. We need to have our local First Nations elders and knowledge keepers at the decision-making table at all levels of government. Learn from these people who have the knowledge passed down to them for thousands of years on these lands. Just know that you have a voice, that your voice deserves to be heard. If there's something happening in your community or affecting your way of life or your quality of life, or future generations' quality of life, that you have a right to stand up and say something.